And welcome back to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. Whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, shoveling snow, I don't know what time of day it is, what time of year, pulling weeds, who knows what you're doing, where you're at, whatever you're doing, changing dirty diapers, or maybe just maybe you got one of those few moments of some solace. Sit back, relax, and listen to your favorite podcast. So wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Jay, and again, this is the Young Dad Podcast. And today I have not one, but two very special guests who have dedicated their lives to supporting new parents as they embark on their incredible journeys of parenthood. Joining me today is Greg Bishop, the founder of Boot Camp for New Dads, and Allison Bishop, who has been instrumental in developing Boot Camp for New Moms. Greg started Boot Camp for New Dads back in 1990 when he recognized the need for expectant fathers to gain confidence and practical skills before their babies arrive. What began as a small group of dads sharing experiences has now grown into a nationwide program that has helped over 500,000 men become more confident and involved fathers, which is what we need. The program emphasizes father-to-father mentoring, creating a safe space where men can learn, share, and support each other. Allison, seeing the success and impact of the DAD program, realized that expectant moms could also benefit from a similar community. While there are many resources for new moms, Boot Camp for New Moms fills a unique gap by focusing on what's going on with dad and how couples can work together to bring out the best in each other as they start their new family. The program provides actionable, realistic guidance and fosters open communication between new moms. Today, we're going to dive into the origins of both these boot camps, discuss the unique approaches they take in preparing new parents, and explore how they're making a difference in families across the country. So, without further ado, join me in welcoming Greg and Allison Bishop to the show. Welcome, guys.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Super excited to have this conversation with you guys. And, just happenstance, an interaction on one of my videos on Instagram leads us to doing a podcast together. So I love how internet works, how social media works, how algorithms and things like that connect us to people, because this was a program that I was unfamiliar with. And I became a dad at 22, my brother at 20. So we became fathers very, very young. Since having my two children, I've since gotten divorced and remarried and whatnot. So him and his wife have had 3 beautiful children together, my beautiful nieces and nephews. And so it's really cool to see these programs and know that they exist for new dads. And I'm excited for the opportunity to share these programs that exist for both new moms and new dads, especially as younger parents who become parents at quite a young age, which everyone says don't do that. And so I'm really excited to have that conversation with you guys today. So first question that I like to ask everyone here on the podcast and start us out kind of with a big question. So we start off hot and we stay hot until the very end. So again, thank you guys for joining us. So we're going to start with this big question. What is a hill you're willing to die on when it comes to preparing new parents for the journey ahead of them?
Well, I'll go first. And this has been I've been at this a third of a century. It actually took me 3 years to get a hospital to do it in the first place. So this has been a very long hill for us. And apparently we're not giving up until we're done. And so I won't say we're going to die on this hill, but we're after it no matter what it takes, basically. So it's just a very cool thing to see these young folks, get up to speed and take care of their babies and moms and that sort of thing. And it's unique, nothing else like it. And so we're not going to give up.
Allison, for you? Gotcha. I love that. I think, Greg, just I did mute you since I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. So I just want to let you know as we go, you guys are kind of echoing into each other just a tiny bit. So I just went ahead and muted you. I unmuted you now.
Okay.
I think. So
yeah, we're in different rooms, so if that helps. So
yeah, just a little bit of feedback I'm getting there. So, but it's okay. Echo, not the best, but I can control it, kind of manipulate it as we go here. So that's great. But what is like the biggest thing that you guys feel is most necessary when it comes to helping new parents prepare for this journey that they're about to set out on?
And I'll go with this one too, and initially at least, and basically it's maternity care. And so we included fathers in maternity care back in 1990. Shortly thereafter, we were all demoted to partners from fathers because they didn't want to make anybody feel bad. And that's kind of the extent of what maternity care has done. Now, we've been successful in expanding through hospitals throughout the nation, but beyond us, there's not much out there. And really, if an OB, when he first met a father, asked him to partner with the OB to take care of mom. That would be a big step in itself. More information, of course, for dads to do so is important. But I think that that's really has to be the future. And I think the time has come where maternity care, the hospitals, the health plans, and the obstetricians, the nurses, that sort of thing, are used to dealing with dads. And it's time they actually took an organized approach to making that support work as best as possible.
Sure. Okay. Allison, do you have something to add there? So what was the question? See, sometimes I do this, I'll ask it, and then it'll just go in, and then it'll come out, and then it just stays out. What was the question? Good question. Thank you. But no, the question here was, what do you feel is the most important thing to convey to these new moms as they start to prepare for their journey ahead?
And let me add that uh, Allison's Boot Camp for New Moms program is really critical in that we've talked with moms over the decades, but she finally got them into in a workshop themselves. It's the same approach as we use for the dads. They get rookies and veterans, and doing the talking and that sort of thing. But the first question they had was, why are we talking about dads? They're not having the baby. And just the more they learn, they appreciated very, very, very much appreciated that dads don't get going until the baby arrives. Moms do so when they get pregnant, and so they're looking at dad, wondering why he's not reading all their books, all the books that they are, that sort of thing. He's not worrying about as much as she is, because it just kind of consumes her. She's got a baby growing inside her and such, and they didn't quite appreciate the dads will catch up once that baby arrives, and once they did, moms lightened up. It was just better all the way around for them and dad, them and dad to get together and figure out how they're going to take care of this baby, as they arrive and such. So that alone has been a huge factor in our success.
Definitely. So if I'm understanding it, then we're looking at a program to where we're helping get the dads up to speed when that baby's born, and so when the baby's born, everyone's up to speed together, and we know what each other's bringing to the table, and so we can kick this thing off, going in the right direction, kick it off strong, and kick off going about this, the best way possible, in a way that's going to be beneficial to both parties, to mom, to dad, and to baby, essentially, too.
Right. In fact, with maternity care, one of the key issues Allison's been doing is working with the nurses to basically make sure dad's dialed when they go home. When he and mom, the baby, go home, dad's dialed to take care of that baby, which is what mom wants too. But that just
Absolutely.
boosts dad's confidence. And if they get a good start like that, it just makes a big difference. It's like anything else in the world. You take on a big challenge. If you learn how to get going with it, you get some confidence and such, you go from there, and you're just on a higher trajectory, throughout the whole course of your daddyhood.
Most definitely. I love that. And I love that word daddyhood right there. Something I talked to, what's his name? Alan. His name's Alan Shedlin. He's the founder of the D3 convention. So it's where different fathers and their kids submit short films for competitions and things like that. And one of his big things is daddying. Not fathering or parenting or things like that. Daddying. And there's a big difference between being a father and being a daddy, kind of things. That's something that he's really big on. In a couple episodes of him, he's a really, really great guy. But that's something that reminded me of. That daddying is that connection and that, hands-on, being prepared for all the challenges and things that are to come and that are coming up here in the near future with, newborn baby. So, and beyond that. So, all right. So, Greg, I'm going to shoot this one at you. So the Boot Camp for New Dads is known for its hands-on, father-to-father mentoring approach. Can you explain a little bit about why this program even started, and then what makes it unique to traditional parenting classes?
Sure.
And how it, helps effectively prepare these other men like yourself, myself, and other dads listening to this podcast who may be expecting a newborn baby for the first time, or maybe already like in the thick of it. But how the boot camp for new dads helps prepare these different men for fatherhood.
And so it started because I had 12 brothers and sisters, 9 younger. I grew up taking care of babies. It was just what we did. And then we had 4. I think babies, every one of them is the most incredible creation in the whole universe. So I'm kind of big on babies. And I just thought that other new dads would, if they learned from other dads, how babies work, they would enjoy them more. The babies would have a better experience. That's kind of how it got started. And, out of our first session, and we didn't have any training with educational programs, anything like that. We didn't even have a curriculum. It was a matter of, I got some friends together with their kids. I asked them to bring their babies to the workshop. We had 10 dads to be from the childbirth education program. And we just started talking, and they started asking questions. And at one point, one of them said, well, I've never held a baby before. So we just handed him ours. And that's kind of where the hands-on thing started. It kind of evolved. I mean, we figured, well, if we're going to show new dads how it works, basically dads are the experts. And so we had the dads doing the training. And then when it comes to babies, well, babies are kind of the experts on being babies. And so, that worked really well too. And it's just a huge factor is you end up with babies and men in a room together for 3 hours. The rookies and the veteran dads. The veterans are caring for their babies. There's no women over 2 feet allowed. That was our model for decades. We never had a complaint either. I'm sure we would these days, but in any event, you have them in a room together. The dads are just doing what they do with their babies. They're answering their questions. By the end of that 3 hours, those rookies were thinking, I can do this. And that's really how the program works. And it works best and still does. And so the hands-on issues evolved over time. At some point, one of our coaches pointed out, well, when a baby needs to be changed, let's ask for a volunteer. And so we call it center ring. The bell kind of goes off. The veteran puts his baby on the floor in the middle of the group, on a towel and such. Ask for a volunteer. We've never not had a volunteer, and so some guy will start helping change that baby's diaper. The only time the phones come out in our programs is when that's occurring, because basically the coach will ask the rookie who's changing that diaper, helping change that diaper, for his phone. He'll take some pictures of him to send home to mom, who will be totally amazed that he's learned how to change a diaper, in this workshop and such. But, they hold the babies, sometimes they would actually help feed the babies, that sort of thing. And so that's kind of how the hands-on thing came along. But it was really just the men in the room together for 3 hours really does the trick in terms of building their confidence. No, I'm not sure I'm asking, and let me mention a few more things too. We were next to a Marine base when we started. And so we would have 18-year-old Marines coming through all the time. That's really where our name came from, because our original name, goes back, a third of a century, was booty camp. And baby booties, or now I should have kept that name, frankly, but in any event, the young Marine said, something, because we talked about the name. We didn't quite like the booty camp. And he said, you ought to call it boot camp for new dads. When I went through boot camp myself, I had this short guy that was screaming at me all the time. That's kind of what my baby's doing. So that's kind of how that connected and such. But that's how we got going. And then it just kind of evolved, where I had some friends do the first session, and then we started recruiting the guys as they became veterans themselves. Their babies came along, they became veterans, they came back, and that's how the thing has grown over time. Now, the traditional parenting program for new parents is childbirth education. And, a friend of ours pointed out that when he got there, he got a name tag in the shape of a uterus. They don't really cater to men too much. It's all about what women's needs are, what mother's needs are, which is totally understandable. There's no issue with that.
Yeah.
But, men and women, as we become fathers, we're in totally different circumstances. As moms get pregnant, they're carrying the baby, that sort of thing. They go through morning sickness. They're in a very different situation with dads. And so getting the guys together alone to talk about this stuff, man to man, basically, just has worked very, very well. And it's just so different than putting them together, because when they're together, the dads won't say things that they might think might upset the mothers in the room, or and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a safe space. It's just a space where they're comfortable, talking about what's on their minds, and not pulling comments because of, other folks in the room and such. Allison runs boot camp now, and you might be able to add a few things here, Allison, about the program that will be informative.
Definitely. And that's about where we Sorry, that's where I was about to transition to too. So, Allison, similarly for you, with Boot Camp for New Moms, focuses on aspects of motherhood that are often overlooked, like understanding what's going on with dad and navigating relationship changes. So, what inspired the development of overall for Boot Camp for New Moms? What inspired the programs? What are some of the goals of Boot Camp for New Moms? And what are some of those things that are similar, different, and just overall, like, how did they work together? Okay. No, I love all that. And you guys are both starting to touch on it a little bit. Some of those that it normalizes these conversations, right? That it normalizes getting together, talking about these things, talking them out in these spaces. And so I'm really curious, what are some of those like those things that are those conversations that you guys are working on helping normalize with the dads and with the mom um, during these during these sessions at the boot camp? Like, what are those most common concerns or those fears, and how does the program help address them?
And let me give you two answers. Oh, go ahead, Allison. Go ahead. Go ahead. And just two quick answers. You're going to go now. Just two quick answers. One is because you asked what kind of fears they have and that sort of thing, and we don't really ask them initially because the rookies will say, I don't, how do I not drop the baby? Well, that's easily solved when you just hand them a baby. They don't drop them, and they get it quickly that that's not an issue. And so basically, we start off with the veterans just saying, talking about what their experiences were, what they learned, what were the most important things they learned. And they'll talk about patience being a huge issue, talk about moms being a huge issue. The baby issues are actually kind of easier compared to moms in some respects for these guys. And so they'll just start laying out what they've learned. And then at some point, let the rookies ask questions, and they just go a mile a minute, and they want to know about car seats and baby formula in the last trimester. At that point, they have a bunch of questions about just all the little things that go into taking care of babies in particular. Breastfeeding is a big issue in terms of dad supporting moms when mom's trying to breastfeed that first time right after the baby's born. She's just given birth. She's kind of blown away. And if dad's up to speed and how to help her out, he will score big points there. We're always looking for opportunities for dads to score points, by the way. And so those are, some of the things that go on. But anyhow, go ahead, Allison.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to have that plan but not need it, right? It's
Yeah.
good to be prepared, but it's better to have a plan and not need a plan than to have no plan and need a plan. It's better to prepare and prevent than react and intervene, you know? And so there's a big difference between those two things, right? Like you have to know what your breaking point is. I can handle crying for, I was a single dad for 3 years. So when I had a 5-month-old when me and my ex-wife separated, you know, and so there was a lot of nights where I didn't have a choice but to, increase my limit and to figure it out. A lot of those times it was just, it feels bad, but I can't go anymore. I have to just kind of let this baby cry it out. Or maybe I just got to bring her into my bed with me and just lay there and hopefully she just picks up that I'm just laying there and sleeping, and she just falls asleep too, kind of thing, and just hope and pray that she picks it up, because I don't have anyone else to help soothe or try to soothe, and I've tried the things I know how to do. Again, I'm limited in my skill set here, by myself, so there's only me, and so try to figure that out. But now, with me and my now wife, we decided to have babies and whatnot. I know that I have a really long tolerance now, for that kind of thing. Like, I can do it on my own, so I got all the skills, I got all these tools, kind of thing. Like, I've got it. You go sleep. I'll be fine. You know, if I can handle it by myself, knowing that you're just there in the room to help if needed is great, kind of thing. So, Allison, you brought up something that I was really hoping we would get into. It's something that I'm like super passionate about on both sides, for moms and for dads, is the mental health side of it. So 9 to 5, I'm a mental health clinician. I work mostly with youth and families with big behaviors, and mostly behavioral health things, some mental health things as well. So mental and behavioral health are kind of my bread and butter here. And I've had a lot of conversations on the podcast about maternal and paternal mental health. Both these things are really big adjustments, right? Becoming a dad, becoming a mom, no matter the age. If you're younger, I want to say it's a little bit harder, but I could just be speaking for myself. And some people struggle when they have kids in their late 30s, early 40s, kind of thing, right? So it's an adjustment for everyone. And there's a lot of managing the emotions, there's a lot of managing the stress. And so, what are those conversations like around, that postpartum mental health disorders for both the men and the women? Because it exists, we know it exists for the women, but we don't talk about it existing for the men. But one thing that I found in some of these conversations, just to kind of preface this a little bit more, is that, these postpartum things, they don't start the second the baby's born, right? There's signs and symptoms there during pregnancy for both, right? And they're not talked about nearly enough, right? They're checked in on, OBs and midwives. So check in, like, how you feeling, kind of thing. Oh yeah, I'm fine, cool. But primarily it's the mom that's checked in on, not so much the dad. And so it's just a quick check, right? And even then after the baby's born, it's like, okay, check in on yourself, make sure you're doing okay, make sure you're fine, and if you're fine, then you're fine, kind of thing. But you know, these symptoms start, and then they just progressively get worse if they're left untreated. So how does the boot camp work to address the mental health aspect of becoming new parents, and also provide what strategies are provided to help the new parents be able to stay calm and confident, and to weather the storm?
And that's a hugely tough one. Go ahead, Allison. Go ahead.
Definitely. And I wanted to Oh, absolutely. And I wanted to share, just kind of before I kick this to you, Greg, just to share some of that need for both to be supported, right? So I just found this one statistic. So there's a study that shows that 1 in 10 fathers experience postpartum depression, so about 10%. But this rate increases up to 25% when the mother also has postpartum depression. About 5 to 10% of new fathers also experience or experience postpartum anxiety as well. And so if there's already a history of that depression or that anxiety, there's a 68% increased risk of experiencing postpartum depression for the men. And so again, helping along the way, supporting each other along the way is absolutely huge. And yes, women grow the baby, and about 15% of women are affected by postpartum depression in the first year after giving birth. About 10 to 20% and or also experience postpartum anxiety. And then also postpartum psychosis affects 1 to 2 out of every 1,000 births. So what is that, like a 0.05% as well there, but it does happen. And so there's a need here, right? Because one can affect the other and vice versa and the other way around. If one's not supported, it can impact the other. Yeah. And so we can see that. And again, this comes from not having that support for each other. There can be persistent sadness. There can be just a lack of interest in each other, in the baby. So if dad's not showing interest, then that could also trigger the mom, or vice versa, can trigger the dad. Trouble sleeping, gotta help each other out here. Irritability, of course, and then also feelings of like hopelessness as well can both affect that. And then of course there's the more severe side of things, of course, like self-harming or harming the baby in some way, shape, or form. You got to know exactly your limit. You got to know exactly when you need help. Past history of depression, anxiety, mood disorders, things like that, also very important. For men, the partners, hormonal changes can be a big one to be prepared for. And so also the lack of sleep, the stress related to the new role kind of thing as well. So these are all just other risk factors and things to think about. But if you think about it, they can be lessened if there's, like you were saying, Allison, if there's that hand in hand, if there's that hand in hand kind of relationship and support with working together through this process. So, Greg, go ahead.
Sure. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
And so we've been, of course, dealing with this for a very long time. And for dads, actually, the 10% postpartum, that's a little confusing because a lot of it occurs before the baby's delivered.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
once he gets, once the pregnancy comes, that's when dads start experiencing stress, and particularly about a year after the baby arrives, when they finally realize that their life has changed dramatically and they can't afford it, and things like that. So there are different issues. The mothers are, tend to be, and that's where the psychosis comes in and such, is the mothers have tremendous hormonal changes. Dad's hormonal changes are fairly moderate compared to mom's. And it just pushes, it surprises moms because they did, a lot of them didn't have any pre-existing issues. That can be a indicator of depression if they had to have depression before and that sort of thing. But it's just a surprising thing that is generated by their hormonal changes. It used to be, sort of the standard thing was it would typically kick in about 6 weeks after the baby arrives. And the problem at that point is that they're both tired. And all of a sudden, mom starts going south. And if dad doesn't appreciate what's happening quickly, there's a big issue there. And so our emphasis, has always been on moms because it's more serious, and also the mom baby connection is, during those early months is so much more important and such. And then of course it turns out, that of course dads get depressed when mom gets depressed because she's isn't able to take care of the baby. All the load goes on him. And so there's you're right. There's a lot of things going on. And what's healthy these days is you younger men are just much more willing to talk about mental health issues. And that's the big change that we see occurring. The problem, though, is that when mom experiences depression, we say go see your, contact your doctor, have dad contact your doctor, get your doctor involved, and get some resources. Well, dad doesn't have a doctor, and there's no real resources for him. And so that's the problem in this country. And like Australia, they have an excellent program for support for dads in terms of depression. But in any event, so that's something we need to deal with and such. But the key issue, for us, the key issue is, hey, dad, if you get depressed, your whole life is kind of built around taking care of mom and your baby. And if you get depressed, you won't be able to do so. So you really need to get it handled. We do wish very much we had better solutions for them because they generally don't exist. Often it's just a matter of that dad talking with other dads facing depression. So he understands it's more normal and that sort of thing. But again, getting the resources is where the problem is. But there's nothing like moms and dads working together throughout this to lower the depression factors for both of them. And so you're right, it's a huge issue. It's kind of tough, of course, when it comes along at that time. One dad told me one time he just couldn't handle his, his like 2-month-old baby's crying. When her face started going, he would just lose it. And so the solution for him that turned out was, I suggested he take the baby out in the stroller outside where they can scream all they want, put headphones on, listen to music so he didn't have to hear it, and just kind of get over the hump so he's not panicking when his baby starts crying and such. But again, no, a big issue, and unfortunately the solutions for dads in particular are not really available.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing too. Like knowing that you can change sceneries, right? Like baby can go where you go. You don't have to stay, right where baby is. Because I think that's another thing that I kind of want to talk about too. Like, especially for new parents, you're used to your home environment just being the home environment. It's quiet, or it can be as loud as you want, as quiet as you want, kind of thing. You're used to like the space kind of thing. And so then when that space is invaded and you bring in home a crying baby to it, that can really set off some things. That can really change things because it's just not what you're used to. You're not used to babies and sound machines and baby monitors and things like that. Like you're just not used to these things that are now in your environment. So your whole environment's different, and but you have to get comfortable in that new environment. Whether that leaving and going for a walk, or maybe it's taking a crying baby to, a spot in the home where you feel comfortable with that crying, right? Like, okay, if I'm just in the baby's room, let's say they have their own room. If I'm just in this room with them, then that's going to drive me crazy. But if I'm in the bedroom with them, then that's going to drive me more crazy because in my head, bedroom is for sleep and for rest. But if a baby's here, then that's going to make me irritable and mad. But wait, kitchen, there's always noise from cooking and music and things like that. I could sit in the kitchen, soothe the crying baby. There's bottles, there's formula, there's all those things, right? Kitchen works, or maybe his living room in the rocking chair or on the couch. It's like, okay, I can turn the TV on, or maybe I can play some video games, or maybe I can do these other things and just, switch my environment because that's a loud environment. That makes sense here. I can go and do that there. And, whatever it might be. And maybe, yeah, sometimes you do have to just sit, put headphones on and let the baby cry. I know that's kind of one thing that's kind of out there and whatnot, is letting babies cry it out, but it's okay. Babies cry. You can't always soothe them because guess what? Babies don't talk. And so sometimes you just gotta let them cry, unfortunately, and tire themselves out. It's okay. It's okay. If you're holding them while they're crying and they just won't stop crying, then at least they know they're still being held and you're supporting them, kind of thing, if nothing else. So it's important to remember those things.
Yeah, you're right. Changing the scenery. One of the most popular, sort of lessons the new guys learn from the veterans is to get out of the house and kind of do tag teams with moms too. She gets a 4-hour break at some point during the week, away from the baby and everything. It's kind of, sometimes you got to kind of boot them out because the moms are so attached and such.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing with dad, and just get out of the house for that change of scenery is something that's really important. So yeah, definitely good idea.
I think also getting used to like taking the baby, like being okay with like telling mom, look, I'm taking the baby with me to go to Walmart or to go on a walk or to go to this place and do this thing, you know, I'm just going to go and do it. And, kind of forcing those breaks sometimes, totally okay too. Nothing wrong with that. And so it's all those things, scenery, I think, is the best way to do it because it confuses the brain, right? Especially a tired brain. If a tired brain can't see a bed or a couch or anything and doesn't, like, it won't be able to think of, oh, I need to rest and sit and lay down. If a tired brain is now moving and active and blood's flowing, it's like, oh, this, okay, wait, what's happening? I'm not in that same spot anymore where I was just miserable. I can't, what, huh? Kind of thing. So now you're tricking your brain and you're playing games with yourself, which is good. It's good to, switch it up. You got to switch it up. In both ways, those breaks are important. So, it's important to do those things. So.
And you've touched on another important issue too. And for dads to get out with their baby alone, moms don't trust them to do that necessarily at first, but when they bring them back alive, it's all good. But that's when a dad develops a special relationship with his child.
Yeah.
Mom's not there. When the three of them are interacting, that's one thing. But dad alone is out there. But take him to the hardware store, show him all the stuff, all the tools. The babies love everything out there. And so that's a special time for dads to connect with their babies, just doing road trips.
I think that's so important, that time, right? And just, my wife, she says when we have our kid and we have a baby that I'm not allowed to take that baby anywhere by myself. I said, well, guess what? You're going to sleep and I'm going to do what I want, kind of thing. And she's like, well, if the baby's little and is born during the summer and stuff, like we can't bring it to baseball games. I'm like, why couldn't you bring a baby to a baseball game in June or August or something? Like, it's fine if it's for a few innings. Oh, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do still. And if you're there, great. That's a bonus. But if me and baby are there, we're going to have a great time. So, and babies love these new experiences, like the stimulation and everything. Like, it's good for babies to get out of the house, and get out of that home environment and get out into the world of color and things like that. And the smells and the sensations and the air and the breeze and the cold and the hot and the warm and all the different things, and to splash in a pool or just feel like warm water and things like that, and to feel these different sensations. Like, they need that. And the younger they experience all these things, that's why we gradually introduce babies to different kinds of food over the first couple of years, and we, slowly introduce them to things, but we have to introduce them to everything. But if we never introduce them to peanut butter until they're 8 years old, the likelihood that they have a peanut allergy, and I don't know the statistics behind this, but it's a lot higher if they're not introduced, if they're introduced way later. But if they're introduced at 8-9 months, a little bit here and there, then peanuts aren't scary. The likelihood that they have a peanut allergy is way, way lower. And same for like fish and things like that. Of course, there's going to be allergies and some things may be genetic, but the earlier you introduce them to these things and get them, refined to them, is okay. It's good. It's good to do those things. They're highly encouraged. So,
one thing I'd like to touch on. Go ahead, Allison. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the brainwaves start at 6 weeks old in the womb. 4 weeks. Brainwaves start at 4, heartbeats start at 6, right?
Yeah, I mean they are exploding when that baby arrives. And a lot of guys think, well, this baby's not doing anything for the first 4 months, when their brain is expanding as rapidly as they ever will, more rapidly than they ever will, and such. So all the little things you do, just talking to them, all of that makes a huge difference. The one thing I wanted to touch on, by the way, is the relationship between moms and dads. To us, is going to be the cornerstone for having a good solid relationship with the baby, especially for dads, having moms support him and such. And so one of the things we do, one of our guys came back from boot camp and suggested that the dads, the rookies, ask mom to make a list of what they like to do for fun now. So once that baby arrives, they get settled in. After a while, they can go back to their relationship they used to have, and in terms of the fun things they like to do. And it's just another way to, so the babies, the parents understand what's most important, which is really them.
Absolutely. That's the one thing I didn't actually put on here for us to touch on, but I love that you brought that up, Greg, because that relationship is so important, right? If the two people raising the child aren't in sync, majority of the time, think it's ever 100% of the time that we're in sync with each other. Let's be honest, we're human. We're lucky if we're hitting that 80-20 mark. If we're hitting that 80-20 mark, we're doing pretty dang good, I would say. You know, if you as the parents, you guys are the cornerstone. And before I had my second child and I was by myself raising her, I was thinking, oh, well, I don't really have an impact on this child until they're a toddler, right? When I can actually do stuff with them, until they're walking and babbling a little bit. Then I have more of an impact. I was super wrong, you know, and I think that has seeing my daughter grow up, my older one, she's 7 now. We still have a great relationship, don't get me wrong. But comparatively to my younger one, who's 4 now, her and I are just two peas. You
Okay.
know, my wife always says my older one looks like me, doesn't really act like me. My younger one, she looks like me a little bit, but her personality is a carbon copy of myself. And it's because we had so much more interaction as she was like a baby and whatnot. Granted, circumstances were different for both children, but I like to think I have a really good relationship with both of them. 7-year-old may tell you something different, but that's on her. My 40-year-old, she loves her dad. I'm her favorite human being, at least in my head. It's probably her stepmom or her animals, honestly, but I digress there. But that cornerstone of the relationship between mom and dad, assuming they're together, right? Assuming we know what society is today, the divorce rate, and single parent households or what's incentivized, and same sex couples and things like that. So it could be mom, dad, whatever that may look like, right? But you guys got to have your connection with each other, right? After you're settled, you have to still make that a priority and take care of each other, take care of each other's needs. The mental needs, the emotional needs, the physical needs. Those are really important to reconnect physically, and for dad to make mom feel beautiful again, make her feel wanted and desired. That you still want some of that kind of thing. You got to chase her again. You got to re-chase her, get the spark back and things like that. Make each other feel special and important throughout that process. And I think the biggest thing here is like show that appreciation for each other. Understand each other's love languages, going into it, coming out of it, and knowing how you can support each other and what kind of love the other needs. And be able to have that open dialogue. Learning and developing that open dialogue is so important between two. Because if not, then baby's going between two households, and things are rough, or baby maybe grows up and only sees one parent most of the time, and maybe dad on weekends, or vice versa, things like that. You never know. So it's really important to make that relationship such a priority between you two.
No, and you're right. The biggest skill for fathers is going to be talking. And that starts off talking to mom about the issues they get into. A lot of men aren't used to kind of talking and such. And with babies, if you learn to talk to your baby, I mean, you can tell them anything in the world, and they'll listen. But if you start early and you talk to them as they grow up and such, that's where that relationship comes from, and then it lasts that much better and that sort of thing. But just talking is a big thing, and it starts with talking to mom about what's coming. When that baby's on its way.
Absolutely, you got to talk. You got to open your mouth. You got to get it out. It can't just always be kept up here. Can't be kept in here. Get it out. Get it out. So, super important. Allison, anything you want to add in? No, you're good. Yeah, things would look a lot different.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have nearly as many adolescent suicides. I don't think we would have nearly as much bullying. I don't think we would have nearly as many kids threatening, other students at school, fights, things like that. If we were able to just raise our kids and, within the home with that, that love, that empathy, that respect, tolerance, for each other. Because, hate's taught, love is taught. They're both taught the same. Tolerance is taught the same. Accepting others for who they are is, something that's taught. Accepting everybody just for who they are. If it doesn't bother you, if it doesn't affect you, leave it alone. Mind your business. Move along, kind of thing, right? And so I think that's super important as well. Is there anything before you start wrapping up here? Is there anything that you guys want to add in that we didn't touch on when it comes to the boot camp that is something that is really important for us to touch on here?
I think the bond for dads and babies is right next to the bond with mom is huge. And the dad won't understand what's going on. The moms get a bond right away because the baby's growing inside them. It's not happening for the dad, for a while. And even when the baby comes, they're not sure what's going on. But as you know, at some point, it doesn't take very long, you just turn to mush for your kid. You'll do anything for them. And
Absolutely.
and it's the guys don't know that until it happens. I've never had one that could explain what happens. You just have to trust us; it will happen, and experience it, and then just kind of gear up for that. And that's
Yeah.
like taking care of the baby in the middle of the night. If mom has breastfeeding issues early, or whenever you get your first shot at feeding your baby with the bottle in the middle of the night, it's only the two of you alone. You can talk to them. It can be very special. Yeah, you're tired and all, but that's a nice opportunity to bond, along with lots of others. And if the guys understand that and they just do it, well, they'll develop their strength as dads just with that bond with that baby. And it's kind of like working out at the gym. If you just kind of do it over time, you're not going to see big results the first couple of weeks, but eventually you will. And that's kind of what dads need to know, going into this whole thing.
Yeah. You got to get your reps in. You got to get those reps in.
Totally.
Got to get those reps in. I remember my oldest daughter, when she was little, I would take care of her at night and whatnot. I used to sing the same song to her all the time. When she was born, the movie DVD, The Greatest Showman, was really popular. And a song that I always used to sing to her was what's the name of that song? A Million Dreams, from that soundtrack. I would put it on and I would hold her and I would sing to her and I would sing it to her for the longest time. And I tried it again when she was like a toddler and stuff, and she knew what was happening. She wasn't going for it at that time. I haven't done that in a long time now, but just thinking back, that was something that bonded us, that she knew, and it would just calm her down. Listening to that song, me singing to her, just helped calm her. Even now, something that helps calm her is me just holding her like she's a baby kind of thing. Sometimes helps calm her down. And I used to have to put like a lot of pressure on her. Like she needed like a lot of weight and a lot of pressure. She had like one of those like moon sack weighted like sleep sack thingies when she was a baby, and like a sleep suit too, that she would get put in. It was all weighted and stuff. And she just needed like a lot of pressure and things like that, for her to be really comfortable when she was a baby and whatnot. And it just took reps. It just took time to develop that bond and doing the things. And you just gotta keep doing them. You just gotta keep putting the reps in, keep putting the work in. So I love that. Allison, is there anything that you want to add? Anything that we missed when it comes to boot camp for new moms? Or absolutely, I love that. All right, well let's have a couple fun questions here, and then I'll ask you guys my final question here. What is like the most surprising or unexpected question that has been asked during a boot camp session? So something that you just heard, you were asked, and it was just like, what?
Hopefully you have one, Allison, because I don't, but keep going.
Yeah. I think that's an important conversation to have too with your partner, with your significant other, with the other parent of your baby. Like, what is this gonna look like after the baby in that realm? It's important to have these conversations. Like, what is that gonna look like? Like, how are we gonna ease back into it? Like, that's gonna be it can. I mean, I think it's a long 6 to 8 weeks. That's a long period of time for some. It's others, depending on what happened and medically and things like that. Like, it's a long time. So you have to have that conversation because both people have needs, and so you got to talk about it. You got to talk about how you're gonna go about that. And you have to be open to all these conversations and whatnot too. Last one here. If you guys could have any celebrity or like a really big name join a boot camp session to share their experiences, who would it be?
Go for it, baby. Yeah, a comedian would be great.
Organic humor around
I
parenting
love that.
so much, and it beats crying, right? And so if you can laugh at yourself and not take your situation too seriously or yourself too seriously, it's really helpful to get over some of the bumps. So he's my pick.
Well, and my thought is, in a boot camp, either as a celebrity coming in as a rookie or a veteran, it wouldn't matter because they're a dad, they're a veteran, are expecting the baby's coming along, that sort of thing, and they have the same issues, same concerns, and that sort of thing, and it's kind of like nobody would even notice that they have a celebrity there because they're just dads. We're just dads. That's it. Babies are just babies too. So
I love that.
they cry, they do what they need to do. So
they eat, sleep, poop, and cry. That's what they do. And they're the best thing in the world. They're the absolutely best thing in the world. So finally, what is one piece of advice from each of you that you would offer to a new young dad who's like 18 to like 22 years old, who's just barely starting out? You're like, number one piece of advice for them.
For me, to the dad, would be, trust me, you're going to be there when your baby arrives, and you're going to be a great dad because the fact that you're here in the first place talking to us early means you're going to be ready and prepared and such. And it's really assuring him that, don't worry about what kind of dad you're going to be. It's all going to work out, and just focus on what you need to do for mom, getting ready for the baby, learn how to, I was going to say learn how to change the diapers. Really, you're not going to do that until the baby's in the hospital. Where the nurse shows you. In fact, the way that works, one of the dads came along at one point and said he wanted to have the nurse walk him through changing his baby's first diaper, because everybody around him thought he was going to be the total laggard as a dad, and he wanted to demonstrate he was there in spades for everybody else. So basically, instead of the nurse changing the diaper and showing him how, it was the nurse walking him through him changing the diaper himself. And that's the kind of thing that builds confidence with these guys. And then they go home and they're ready to charge things. And, they're sort of their manhood, really, in a way, comes out just in terms of, their attitudes and such. And once they get into that sort of confident mode, they're good to go. They'll figure out the problems as they come along. And that's just kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say you're more important
Allison?
to your baby, and your baby's going to be more important to you as a dad than you realize. You can't even know until that baby comes.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for this conversation tonight. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Allison. Thank you guys for sharing your insight and sharing more about the incredible work that you guys are doing to support new parents. For our listeners who want to learn more about boot camp for new dads and boot camp for new moms, what's the best way for them to get involved or to find a program near them?
Website and get to the mom's website from there. It's probably easiest is bootcampfornewdads.org. Same with the moms, bootcampfornewmoms.org. So either one.
I love that. Perfect. And we'll link those in the show notes. As always, you can find those in the show notes of the podcast episode, or you can head over to youngdadpod.com and you can find them on the resources tab over there for all the different show notes, things like that, full transcript and everything. So again, guys, thank you so much for being with me. Thank you so much for being here to have this conversation with me. It's an important conversation. I love what you guys are doing. Keep doing it. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to the Young Dad Podcast. Until next time, take care, embrace the journey, and remember that support is out there. You just have to reach out.
Yes.